As the leader of the Booner Pack, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the f*** up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juices pumping, boys.
All right, good morning. We are live. The Detroit Lions beat the Los Angeles Rams 26-20. Crunch Time Sports. Booner, Lukas Klotz,
shout out.
Jeff Iafrate will be joining us in just a moment here. He is on his way to be here. Hey, absolute thriller of a night. Klotzy, appreciate everyone tuning in as you guys start flowing in here. We're going to be live for probably the next hour or so. Get things rolling here just to talk some Detroit Lions this morning. Victory. Hey, how about this, Klotzy? Victory Monday, baby.
A lot closer than we thought it was going to be.
Victory
but at the end
Monday.
of the day, Boone, it's a victory fucking Monday, and that's all that matters.
I love
right now.
That's the best thing ever. I got to chug the Kool-Aid last night. I got to drink some beer, and we got to enjoy a win. Dan Campbell post-game speech. We'll play that in a little bit for the people. He did his post-game speech. Alex Anzalone, game ball. David Montgomery, game ball. Jamison Williams, game ball. Everyone got a game ball. How are we feeling this morning, Klotzy?
Worn down, but we're here. Just like the Detroit Lions, we put up a gritty performance last night. We're up real late, but we secured the dub just like what the Lions did. Back up on Monday, put on a great show in the AM, and we'll be back 8 to 10 tonight to break it down for our normal 2-hour programming. So can't wait, Boone. Can't wait. Big things coming.
Good. All right. Yeah, this is a great morning here. We want to just break down the game here, go through some things. When Jeff joins, he'll give his thoughts on the game. I know we did last night for the post-game show. Hey, this is the thing. I'm going to say this. One thing we learned about the Detroit Lions game, or team last night, some absolute dogs. So a bunch of absolute dogs. Dan Campbell, he just finds a way to figure it out. This is what it comes down to. There was couple fourth downs where Sean McVay tried to go for it.
Yep.
Didn't get one of them. It was big time. He did get another one. I was thinking about this last night when we got off the show, Klotzy. Turned into a coaching battle.
Yeah.
Dan Campbell won the coaching battle at the end of the day. It was another one of those, like, hey, close game. I get, and I will understand if there are people who want to say, oh, the Rams were depleted. They were missing a lot of people. Their offensive line. Listen, this is the NFL. I don't want to hear any of that. I don't really care who was playing, who wasn't. You go out there and compete, and it's going to be a close game. These guys are in the NFL for a reason. All these guys make a 53-man roster for a reason. You go out there and try and win a football game. Dan Campbell went out there and did it. He made right decisions. He did the right things. Jared Goff, David Montgomery, all of these guys did that. There should be no excuse at all from Lions. Like, you should be happy that we came out with the win in overtime.
I'm happy, but there's definitely concerns. I think when it mattered the most, you saw this team play the best ball, and that was when they were running the football. And that's where, again, like Lions last night in the third quarter, even the fourth quarter, they got away from that run game, but when it mattered the most, they were able to seal it together. So it was a coaching battle, and the Lions at the last second were able to pull away. But I think quarters 1 through 3, you had to be at least a little concerned. You're not concerned at all?
No, I'm concerned. I'm not saying that. I'm saying Lions fans should be happy with the win. There is concerns defensively, offensively, like the whole game, not even just the first through third quarter. Even the fourth quarter, like the whole game, the defense was bad. The defense was giving up everything to Cooper Kupp. Offensively, you didn't get anything going until the final drive of the game in overtime. So there are things to work on, yes. But is it that, like, again, you won a football game. There are things like you looked a little rough. The Lions, there was things that you need to work on. Anyone week 1, you're going to have things to work on, and we'll go through all of those. At the end of the day, though, to me, it's just you got the job done.
Mm-hmm.
You played the worst football game you probably would play all season long, and you came out with the victory. That's where, in my mind, I'm happy because I know, like, hey, week 1 of the playoffs, you get a bye and you have to play, I don't know, you have to play the Rams again, and you're struggling throughout the game. I know the Lions aren't just going to get blown out. They're going to be in the game and they're going to still have the opportunity to win the football game. Like, that's in my mind how I kind of walk out of yesterday's game, that these guys are resilient. They know how to finish games. And even if things are down, hey, we're going to figure out this thing and we're going to come out with a victory.
Yeah, and this will be a huge win, even though it's week 1. You talk about later on in the season, the Rams are going to be a playoff team. And you look at the NFC matchups, you look at the Eagles and the Packers played each other. The Packers obviously losing Jordan Love, but you're going to have those matchups where Lions are playing the Eagles, but they got the 49ers, they got the Cowboys. All these NFC wins that you can get early on truly add up. I mean, I know it was a long time ago, but do you remember when that Golden Tate call happened against Atlanta Falcons where he's tackled at the 1-yard line, 10-second rundown, game was over? If the Lions went on to win that game, they would be in the playoffs that season. So when you talk about early on games in the NFC, those type of things matter. So this is a huge win regardless if it was ugly or not. This will be something that is in the Lions' favor majorly compared to other teams that are trying to get in that high seeding spot for the NFC, because if there's any tiebreakers, the Lions are going to have a good one on their side with beating the LA Rams.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the first game. I saw someone in here, who was it? Someone in the chat said they're just shaking off the rust right now. That's all it is. Anakin Skyogre. The guys are just shaking off the rust. They're kind of getting a feel for it. One guy I want to talk about here, and some people might think I'm going to Jameson Williams. Let's talk about David Montgomery, Klotz.
Yep.
Let's talk about D-Mont. I know D-Mont. We spoke about him a little bit last night after the show. I don't know if we gave him enough credit. He did get a game ball from Dan Campbell. Everyone's talking. You said it. You came in this morning and said, "Hey, everyone's talking about D-Mont online. 17 carries, 91 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, a touchdown, and not even that. In overtime, that man, he put everything on his back and said, "I'll carry you guys to victory here," and he just dominated the offensive line that wasn't showing up all game. Felt like with the offensive line's not doing anything. Yeah. Guess what they did in overtime? They showed up and they were giving D-Mont holes. D-Mont was running right through them, and D-Mont's an underrated piece. Like, what did you say last night about D-Mont? You said people just forgot about D-Mont.
No, they were reminded
what David Montgomery could do. How do you feel about D-Mont?
I mean, David Montgomery, we want to look at the overtime drive where the Lions, I think the overtime drive was the most physically dominant drive that the Lions had, the best drive of the game. And if you look at the play calling here, Khalif Raymond end for 12 yards. Then it goes to David Montgomery for 20 yards, David Montgomery for 9 yards, Jahmyr Gibbs for 10 yards, Jahmyr Gibbs for 3 yards, David Montgomery for 6 yards, David Montgomery for 1 yard, timeout, David Montgomery touchdown. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plays. And out of those 8 plays, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them went to David Montgomery, and they were just committed to running the ball. So David Montgomery put the team on his back in overtime. And I mean, even like that second to last run, maybe the third to last run, where they're at the 6 to 7 yard line, and David Montgomery just carries guys 3 extra yards to get on the 1 yard line. The game's over at that point, because now you're giving the Detroit Lions offense 1 yard to get in order to win the game. That's a guarantee going to happen. So David Montgomery, I know I like Jahmyr Gibbs more as a running back, still do, but like I said, there are going to be games where it's the David Montgomery game. When you're going up against an inexperienced, soft front seven with the Lions can just bully them, that should be a game where David Montgomery gets more carries and has more yards, because David Montgomery is still a very good running back. I've said it once, said it twice, I'll say it again. Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, is a top 5 type of guy, but David Montgomery is a top 10 type of guy, especially behind this offensive line. David Montgomery's not going anywhere. David Montgomery's going to have another game, could even have numerous games that are just like this. This is just the classic game where we brought it up last night. When they went into Lambeau last year on primetime, it was a David Montgomery game, because when the going got tough, you just needed somebody that was going to get you guaranteed yards, put you in second and manageable, third and manageable, and that's what David Montgomery did last night for the Lions.
I tell you what, David Montgomery's your bell cow back. You put everything on him, and you just run. He's the one that you're going to be running up the middle the whole time. Start the game. I said early in the off season, no matter what, David Montgomery's still going to get 15 carries every single game. This was the conversation that we had earlier in the offseason. It was like, hey, is David Montgomery going to get, are they going to take some load off of him? I don't, like we saw last night, like, no, they're going to rely on him. Like, and they need to rely on him. He sets the tone in the offense, the run game. Everything starts with David Montgomery to open up a game. And it's going to be like that every game going forward. And you saw when they went away from David Montgomery last night, things didn't look that great. They couldn't get in the rhythm. And I think it's like, hey, you have to be consistent. The other thing, too, with that, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 3 catches, 13 yards. This might be, this isn't a bad, I don't want this to come off as a bad thing or anything. Probably his worst game of his career since maybe his rookie season when he wasn't getting any
I mean, I don't think there was any doubt about it. I mean, on the interception, you can blame Amon-Ra if you want. That was just a tough play for him to make. But outside of that, there wasn't any plays where you're like, oh, Amon-Ra could have been hit right there. He was wide open. Like, Amon-Ra, I just think what Sean McVay did is he told Shula, you just make sure that Amon-Ra does not get going. You make sure that Sam LaPorta does not get going. So I think it's one of those things where you can book Amon-Ra is going to be going for 100+ next week. 10 catches, 100+ yards and a touchdown. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown, there's no reason to be concerned about this. Cooper Kupp is the guy that even last year, he'd have performance where he's just going 2 catches for 17 yards, but then Puka Nacua was putting up 15 catches for 130 yards. And I think when you look at that, okay, Amon-Ra did not show up. Jameson Williams did, though. Williams did. He did what he needed to do to make sure that it doesn't matter. Like Amon-Ra still had an impact on that game. Every play, the Rams defense was worrying about shutting down Amon-Ra St. Brown through the air. I think the presence was still there.
Shula on the other side of the ball said, "Hey, we need to figure out a way." We said this last night. Like, we need to figure out a way to take some of these guys out of the game. This is why this Lions offense is so. There's so many valuable pieces on this offense with J-Mo, with Jameer, David Montgomery, Sam Laporta. You saw Khalif make a big play when Amon-Ra was struggling. Like, you have guys that can step up. Like, you have an unlimited amount of weapons to be able to step up, and it's not just like, these aren't average. These aren't, as Klotz, you say, these aren't Jags. These are absolute dudes who can go out there and make plays for you. And Jameson Williams. All right, Amon-Ra's having a tough game. J-Mo, we need you today. Let's go. And he stepped up. Sam Laporta, as much as he didn't have a big game, he's still going out there 4 or 5 catches, 40-something yards. When he needed a play, Sam Laporta was able to make it. And it's the same thing with Amon-Ra. And I think as this thing gets going, you're going to start seeing this offense just develop and develop and develop.
Hollywood.
And there's going to be no way, and there's going to be no chance they're going to be able to take Amon-Ra out of the game and J-Mo, because you have J-Mo, and you're going to start, and you have Laporta. Like, there's going to come a point to where these defenses and these DCs, they can't take a guy out of the game because we have other guys. So now you have to, it's a scary offense. Jeff Iafrate, welcome to the show, brother. How are you feeling this morning?
Hey, I'm feeling good. Like we talked about yesterday.
Victory Monday.
I don't care how it looks. I don't care if you got to put a little bit of makeup on a pig. You got to win, all right?
Yeah.
I don't give a damn. But I was listening to the show. I mean, you guys are – the whole thing about Monty, you guys are 100% spot on. And I know Klotzy, I know how you feel about Jahmyr Gibbs. Still probably the most talented between the two, no doubt. But his importance was – everyone was reminded yesterday on how important it is to have a guy like that to set the tone. And it does keep Jahmyr – and my biggest argument with it was it keeps Jahmyr fresh.
Yeah.
Keeps him healthy. Not that you got to give the guy 5 carries. I mean, he had a lot of – how many touches did he have last night, Jahmyr Gibbs?
Let me look real quick.
Anyway, I think
he had 11
he had
carries.
11 and 4 catches.
That's a good.
Total.
I think that's a 15 at the minimum touches a game for Jahmyr should be like the floor.
Yeah,
like that's a good. I didn't think that was bad. I didn't leave that game and be like, man, they should have used Jahmyr Gibbs more. Like Montgomery was the clear RB1, at least in terms of how the impact was, and that's how you're gonna. Some days it's gonna be Jahmyr Gibbs. Some days it's gonna be Monty.
Is there a feeling last night though to where, like, sometimes when Jahmyr, like, you put Jahmyr Gibbs in positions to have big plays, these screen passes, get him on the outside going, but like he can run through between the tackles. Klotz, you kept saying like he can run through but David Montgomery is just, he's getting you 4 or 5 every single play. And when they went away from him and started running Jahmyr, you're like, all right, we need to go back to David. Like, we need to go back to this bell cow. We need to. And that's where, to your point, Jeff, like, I think they gave him the rock a good enough times. And I think that's like, that was what it was like last year. It was like 17 carries for DMOT, 18 touches, and it was like 15 for Gibbs. And you had success doing that. And I think they're going into the season with the same mindset. I don't think it's like they said it in the preseason. Like, David Montgomery came out and was like, we want to make sure we're both healthy and we want to split the load here. Like, we don't care about who gets the most yards or anything. Like, we just want to make sure we're winning football games. And that's where it felt like last night. Who's the hot hand? David Montgomery.
Yeah,
right.
I think too, like, I think it wasn't even just Jahmyr Gibbs. They kind of just got away from that run game in general in the third quarter.
Yeah.
Like, they went drive for drive. They had Demont open the first drive, Jahmyr Gibbs open the second drive, and then they had the Jameson Williams touchdown, which is on the third down. They really didn't give themselves any way to get going in that third quarter as far as setting a tone. So I think, like, David Montgomery, like, I'm not denying anything you guys said as far as the hot hand, but I think they need to get both of these guys more touches, especially if Amon-Ra's not doing that. Like, David Montgomery, if you know that you're not going to be able to get anything to Amon-Ra St. Brown, he needs to be on the field. And then the next drive, Jahmyr Gibbs needed to be the focal point because the running game is what was getting it done. The Rams, their secondary held up. Jared Goff did not play the greatest game by any means. I thought there was a couple throws even that, like the one where he was rolling to the left and he tried to hit Jahmyr and they hit him into the feet. Jahmyr was tripping like that. Just Goff did not look his cleanest. So the third quarter woes offensively, like, just rely on the run game, whether it is Jahmyr or it is David. They need to just rely on that run game in that third quarter because that's what sets the tone. You saw it in overtime. If you have a drive like you did in overtime coming out of the second half, that's going to deflate teams immediately. So that's just where I understand Ben Johnson, very smart coordinator, the best offensive coordinator in the league. But at some points, I feel like he does get in front of his own way. He almost shoots himself in his foot by trying to do too much and trying to create a new identity for the second half instead of what got you here from the first half.
I mean, when we talked about the keys to victory, or at least it was just on Friday when we were on our live show. And one of the things, I don't think it was a key to victory, but it was talking about the matchup, how we think it'll look. I brought up how the Lions are going to run all over the Rams, and they ran for 163 yards, but it didn't feel like enough.
No.
Like it felt like they could have got close to 200 yards rushing.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
they
in that overtime drive, there's probably 70 yards in that alone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you look at it, the third quarter was just one of those teams where they couldn't get anything going. Fourth quarter, they couldn't. And then Matthew Stafford was dinking and dunking the whole way down the field to keep the Lions off. Like, they had to find something in that third quarter, because I don't think that, not saying they're going to guaranteed lose to Tampa, but if they play like this coming out of halftime against Tampa, it's going to be a tough uphill battle, I think, compared to being able to play with the lead.
It's going to be a tough game. You're still at home. I still think like they're gonna. This is where it's like yesterday. You saw some weaknesses in the Lions, and I don't think it was like a weakness to where it's like, oh, the Bucs can be like, oh, we can beat them that way. It was just, hey, you just didn't play well. And like Dan Campbell's going to go into this week, and things are like, you're going to work on those things. Ben Johnson looked a little rusty in play calling. Now guess what? Now we go into week 2. He's going to figure this thing out. Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to get back involved. Right. Like honestly, think about this, guys. Let's look at the receptions here, because it's not normal. You have J-Mo with 5, Sam Laporta 4, Jahmyr Gibbs 4. Then you have Amon-Ra with 3, D-Mount 1, and Brock Wright 1. No Khalif Raymond. Amon-Ra only had 3 catches. Sam Laporta 4 catches. Like, that's not how it's going to be all season long.
But remember when we talked about the wide receiver position, we're like, man, they're going to feed a lot of guys anyway.
They will, but like you're not going to see
games where it looks like that.
You're not going to see 6 targets for Amon-Ra St. Brown and 5 for Sam Laporta all season. Well, that's going to go up.
Right.
But going into this week, that's going to be an emphasis for Ben Johnson is, hey, we need to get these guys the ball. And like, yeah, it's going to get spread around. Brock Wright's going to get a David. Like, these guys are all going to get the ball. Khalif Raymond's going to get the ball. I just think like you're going to see a lot of these guys' targets go up more, and they're going to find a way to get more into this offense. Because last night they relied on David Montgomery a lot. You're not going to, like, as much as we're talking about now, David Montgomery being the bell cow, you're not going to rely and go win every game, all 17 games in the playoffs, giving David Montgomery the ball 20 times and only having 4 targets to Amon-Ra St. Brown.
No, they got to get him more targets.
So, like, that's going to change this week. And Ben Johnson, they're going to meet and they're going to say, hey, we need to figure this thing out. We need to get this offense going again, because this is not how the offense is supposed to look. How many 3-and-outs did they have? Multiple. How many times did they have to punt it? Jack Fox. How many punts did Jack Fox have last night? Let me check. 4 punts. Jack Fox should not be punting the ball 4 times with the best offense in the NFL. Should not happen. So, like, I think Ben Johnson, they're going to figure it out. Those guys are going to get involved. This offense is going to look a little different next week. And that's why, like I get your point, Klotzy. Like, you'll get in a deep hole next week if you do. There's no way they look like this on offense next week. 0 chance. I'll guarantee it now. Take their team total over. They will not look like that. Like, they scored 26 points, guys, and that offense looked tough last night.
Yeah.
And they still scored 26 points.
Yeah, and that's still like that. And that's the ebbs and flows of the NFL season. Like next week they'll win like 37 to like 17.
Yeah.
Or something like ridiculous. Or that's not actually my score prediction, but you get my point. It's just like
that.
That's just how the
confident.
That's no, I'm not. I think at the Bucs it's gonna be another close game. But that's just how the NFL season goes. Lions their offense looks like complete trash. For the most part, they bounce back. But next week they'll bounce back. My point was, they didn't even have Amon-Ra his double-digit targets, and Cleve didn't even get a ball. Like, so that goes back to our offseason discussions about the wide receiver core. It's like they got to feed Jahmyr too. Like, Jahmyr got how many catches and targets? I mean, he's basically a receiver, you know?
Do look at it like that. I just look at it like the offense didn't get going. Like,
because they didn't sustain drives. They didn't move the chains early on in the second half and in the fourth quarter to be able to get Amon-Ra those targets that he needed to get him going. Like, they just offensively weren't able to sustain anything until that overtime. It seemed like in that second quarter they did a fine job too. Fine job.
Last year, Jared Goff was consistently going over 40 pass attempts, which that means lots of targets going out. Last night he was at 28. So he's almost half of what he usually passes the ball. But that's because you don't have those long possessions that you were having last season.
Yes. But I think also that the pass attempts thing will go down a little bit because we're going to now be dealing with a better defense. That's what I think. Remember we talked about he's not going to be throwing the ball 40 plus times.
I don't defense. But that's where I'm on I don't think they didn't throw 40 passes last night because I'm
not saying last night. I'm talking about for the season.
Oh, yeah.
Would you agree or disagree that a better defense offensively, you're not going to be throwing the ball?
I don't think it's drastic. I still think you're throwing the ball 40. Like, he's still going to be throwing around 40 times. Like last night, the only reason he didn't get to 40 was because the offense just kept stalling out. They just did not get any
last night, whatever. I'm talking about for the in general. Like, I don't think it's good. if your defense is playing well, not saying this is not last night, I'm talking about in general, and Jared has like 40+ pass attempts, like almost 50 pass attempts. Like Matthew Stafford, what do he have? Like
50 something.
Like that.
I'd have to look, but I know he had like 40.
But they couldn't run the ball. That's why but I get it though. Jared's going to get Khalif Raymond involved. He's going to get Isaiah Williams involved.
Yeah, like Stafford was 34 for 49, 317 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So it'll be interesting to see. I kind of would. There'll be times where he does throw for more than 28, but I don't think it's to Jeff's point. It's not a good situation, especially when you look at the Rams offensively. Like they were just cooking for so long, and they were not getting any points just because they're on the field for so long. When you have that, I mean, that running game, like we said, you hope to get that going more. You hope that Jahmyr Gibbs gets more than 40 yards. You hope that you can find a way to get him more incorporated in the run game so he can have the explosive runs. So when you have that, you have completions of Amon-Ra St. Brown with the yak, Jahmyr Gibbs, there will be games where Jared Goff does throw for 40, but then I think there will be more, compared to last season, there will be not a lot. There will be more games where you see like this, where it's just conservative, run the ball just because you're the better team. Like the Lions defense will play better as well. And I think what we got to take with a grain of salt is just how good this offense is with the weapons as well.
I got to disagree with both of you guys, honestly. I just like last night, like as much as we're not
talking about last night. You keep going.
Hold on. Let me finish my point here. Last night, you have that offense where it's like, all right, yeah, you need to get conservative because you're the better football team. I'm not trying to do that every single game this year. Like the Lions should not try. Ben Johnson should not be like, hey, let's just pound the rock and let's just conserve this offense and let's just conserve the time and let's go out there and win a game by a touchdown. No, get your offense going. Like that's the thing. You have one of the best offenses in the NFL. If the offense looks like it did last night consistently, and it's like, hey, just pound the rock.
It's not.
You can't win like that, and you won't win a Super Bowl. This offense, that's not what you guys said. This offense needs to get going, and this thing needs to they need to figure out how to get targets to Amon-Ra St. Brown. They need to get more. You need to have 8 or 9 targets to Amon-Ra St. Brown. The defense is going to step up. There's going to probably be less plays and maybe less possessions as last year. I agree with that. But that doesn't mean I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the offense at hand. Go out there and throw the rock more to Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta. I don't know why you guys are getting mad. Go out there and get the rock to those guys.
No, you're saying our point.
No, I'm not.
Okay. There's nothing that you said that we disagree with.
We literally agree.
Why are you guys are gaslighting me right now? But all right, keep going.
All right, we agree. You're right. Get Amon-Ra more involved. We agree.
We're just saying compared to last season.
Yeah.
That we think there's going to be a couple more games where Jared Goff is not throwing to that 40+ volume. That's all we're saying because the defense is going to be creating more plays.
But we agree. Yeah, you want to get Amon-Ra St. Brown more involved. No one is happy with 6 targets. All right, and that's so we 100%. I'm with you there. There's no question. And I think last night, the offense was not good until overtime. So we'll see. I mean, next week they have a opportunity to bounce back. Even though the front seven's pretty good for the Bucs, it'll help. Achillio says there are a lot more boom plays.
Yeah, I mean, when we say conservative too, I'm just saying more balanced of a game where it's not equal amount every time, but there's closer gap in between the run and passing game. Like obviously when you have Jameson Williams, you're going to take a deep shot. There's nothing conservative about that. I just think more of a balanced offense when you're playing the Rams. Obviously, like I said, take with a grain of salt because the offense they have going on there. When you're playing like the Tennessee Titans or games like that where it's just clear games. I think that's where they impose their will, and they're a little bit more balanced than last season because they have more to do.
But we'll see. They have it next week. They get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're coming off a huge win. So they're going to have to – and it's a home game at least. That's good. And their defense is not – they might allow more big plays with their secondary, but the Lions offense will bounce back. Obviously, if you want to blame preseason, whatever the hell you want to blame, go ahead. But that week 1 offense is not going to look like that week 2. Or week 3 or week 4. So it will I have full faith they'll bounce back. The defense, I do think will get even better. At least I think. I mean, what do you think, Boone? Like a top 10? What do you think they could be?
It should get better. There's a lot of gap, the secondary looked tough last night. That's where I'm at with the secondary to where it's like you got to figure that out back there because I felt like the defensive line, and I know it's a bad offensive line that you're going up against, so you're able to get there. But as a whole, you have to get on the same page. The defense has to get on the same page. AG has to figure out a way to get them, but you can't give up those long drives. And the bend don't break is awesome because you're giving up 20 points in a game, which isn't terrible. Mm-hmm. But you're keeping your defense out there. Your defense is just absolutely grinding, and there's no rhythm in the game. The defense is struggling. You're giving up 70-yard drives, and whether you're giving a turnover or you're forcing a field goal, like, yeah, that's a win at the end of the day. But when you're constantly giving up 70, 80-yard drives and you're just these chunk plays just constantly, it's like, hey, this got to get stopped at some point. And next week is like that offense next week is going to kill you. You're going to get destroyed by Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Rachaad White if you don't figure this thing out. So they do have, I think the defense, and they're going to have an opportunity to be a top 10 defense, and I think they have the pieces to do it. It's just about, hey, how do we go out there and scheme and kind of get this thing done, figure this thing out.
I just don't want to see it the same script as last year where the defense, you know, they're giving up touchdowns. Or I know late they did the bend don't break, but they're early in the season. It was, hey, there's a lot of pressure on the offense to score points. That's why I don't want. That's not going to win you a Super Bowl. Like you can't just be like, all right, top 5 offense, go win us a Super Bowl. Like, and I think they can be, you know, top 10 would be awesome. I mean,
there's definitely a chance. I think all it was, they just needed to tighten a couple things up. Like you saw multiple chances for Brian Branch to get an interception. He didn't come down with it. Carlton Davis towards the end of that game could have sealed and potentially made it so the Lions didn't even go to overtime with a dropped interception. And then Terrion, he had those handsy plays, but if you really actually take what happened to that game, Cooper Kupp, I understand he had 110 yards, but when you look at 110 yards and he had the ball 14 times, that's letting you know that they're limiting him. So Kyron Williams, 50-plus rushing yards on 17 attempts. They did their job. I just think schematically, they were playing not to lose that game. They weren't trying to make plays because Matthew Stafford knows how to move the defense with his eyes, make those no-look passes, and create plays down the field. And there was only 1 or 2 of them. The big play to Brian Johnson was off a missed tackle. So to Booner, to your point, if they just kind of corrected things, eliminate the missed tackles, Terrion Arnold, as he's going to be a good player in the NFL. You can tell he did not look like a Jeff Okudah or somebody that couldn't hold his own. Like Terrion, there's times in the red zone where he did clamp up Cooper Kupp, but you don't hear about it because the ball is not being thrown that way. So Terrion Arnold's going to be a good player for this team. I just think with shaking off the rust, you're going up against an elite wide receiver duo with an elite quarterback behind him, an elite offensive mind in Sean McVay. You're going to have another great wide receiver duo with less quarterback play and a less minded offensive coach. I think next week is where you really can see if this defense in the secondary is legit, because they have 2 tough tasks right off the bat with these wide receiver duos. And even like Rachaad White's a very good running back. Tampa's got a good front 7 or a good front 5. So next week, I don't think there's any reason to be concerned by any means. But next week, I think you get another reevaluation process that is a little bit more valuable than week 1, just because you have a little bit more ball that you've played so far.
Kiazi says, will you guys keep this time slot, or are you guys just doing this after Lions games? Yeah, this is more of just, hey, let's go live, talk to the people the next morning, see how everyone's feeling. This isn't going to be a new time slot or anything. We'll still be live tonight, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. So tune in. Come hang out. Let's see. Mike Owen says, still have a lot of work to do and improve. Was happy to see J-Mo take it to the house.
Yeah, J-Mo stepped up.
Yeah,
I'd love to see Adam Baydoun in the comments right now. I'd love to see all the people that said J-Mo, he's just going to be a gadget type of player. He's not going to be a legitimate.
Routes.
Like, J-Mo looked like one of those guys where if A.J. Brown was out for the Eagles, Devontae Smith stepped up. Jamar Chase is out for the Bengals, T. Higgins stepped up, etc. You can keep going down the line. Jamison Williams is going to be a guy that's going to consistently make plays for this team because he's an elite wide receiver in a great position, being a wide receiver too in a top 5 offense. So Jamison Williams is going to have a year like a lot of people projected.
We'll see. And he gets to face a team next week that he had a bomb last time they played.
Yeah, very familiar with them.
So,
they know.
I mean, hey, very familiar. Very familiar. Lions Stroll, AG needs to disguise his coverage better. They would show zone with the linebacker shift, and Stafford and Kupp 8 every time.
Couldn't stop Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp was brutal. It was just like last year. It was flashbacks of last year. Is any big time wide receiver you go up against, you're giving up 150 yards to him every single time, without a doubt. Like, there's no question. And if that's a thing, like if that happens next week again, if it keeps happening, like that's a problem.
Yeah,
that's going to be a problem.
I mean, and if he was, and I see Chilios says if he will hopefully be coming back soon. Stefan says, crunch time crew from Germany. Great job. Question.
Shout out.
Why with a 4th string offensive lineman, we only had that few sacks? Well, Stefan, trust me, I can see why you look at that and be frustrated, but what you have to understand is Matthew Stafford, and we talked about this last night, fellas, he just gets the ball out so quickly that even when you're there, and trust me, I'm not saying the defensive line played excellent. I mean, the pass rush at times was non-existent, especially with 4 backups. But there is times where the defensive line will get there and he gets the ball out, or Aiden's in his face and he gets the ball out. And Aiden finally got a sack, but I try not. That's why it's hard when people just look at stat sheets and they'd be like, "Oh, no sacks," or "You got a sack, they stink." Like if you watch the game, they had some success getting to him. Sometimes they did not with backups. But I would say that Stafford, man, he's just he's got a quick release.
The defensive line, people can say whatever they want. The defensive line looked better than they did last year. Like those guys were getting there. And Matthew Stafford had the ball. Matthew Stafford had the release. Matthew Stafford can make the passes to get the ball out. Defensive line, those guys. Marcus Davenport had a half a set. He looked decent last night. Like he looked like he was supposed to look. Marcus Davenport did. Levi O looked like he was supposed to look. Everyone's sitting there talking about Levi O's having this big offseason. He showed up.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you would want more than 2 sacks. Matthew Stafford, anytime it got to him, he just tossed it out of his hands and hoped for the best.
Yeah,
and he just had like Cooper
4.
Kupp sitting there. Like that, the stat sheet doesn't show. This is one of those things where people are like, oh, the pressure, the stat sheet doesn't show what actually happened with the defensive line last night. The defensive line was getting there. They were putting pressure. They were doing their job versus Matthew Stafford. I wholeheartedly believe that. I don't think there's any worry on the defensive line. We could say, too, the way you said last night, we want to see what they do versus the Bucs. Okay, that's fine. We'll see. I have faith that next week they show up versus Baker and they get more than 2 sacks next week versus Baker Mayfield. And I have a very good feeling about that after what we saw last night.
The Scratch Golf Show, shout out to him. He says, Lucas, are you going to retract your Levi O slander?
I have many times. I have.
Actually, no, you have. Let's talk about MD, Marcus Davenport.
Oh, Marcus Davenport. He looked fine. He looked very
One
good.
game, but
yeah, he held his own out there. He looks like a guy that can go out there and get 6 sacks. I think there was a couple of times where it's like, all right, what are we doing here, Marcus? I don't remember. It was the missed sack, but at the end of the day, he was the only one getting there. The late, probably in the 3rd or 4th quarter in the red zone where he missed the sack. But at the end of the day, I think Marcus Davenport looked fine out there. He wasn't a guy that you were like, oh, Marcus Davenport's a star. But no, he wasn't a guy that was a weakness for this team. They didn't want to activate James Houston. That obviously showed they had a lot of confidence in Davenport. And I think that he brought a lot of
he brought some juice.
He brought some juice when it came to stopping the run game as well. So Marcus Davenport, very happy with how he performed last night.
Hey, you know what? That's growth, boo. What he just said.
It's growth.
It's growth. I mean, he said, you know what? I see it, and I'll point it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, again, like to your point, the guy didn't look like
a super. He didn't look like Hutch out there.
But he looked like, hey, you know what?
Need him to look
if this
like
dude
Hutch.
can do what he did last night every week or most weeks, you'll take that.
If Levi O and Marcus Davenport look like that every single night, you are going to be just fine.
Yeah, because he was Marcus Davenport was a big factor in the run game as well.
Yes.
I mean,
And
that dude is
not even talking about adding DJ Reader too.
Yeah.
You add DJ Reader, those guys, everything else more opens up even more. And Aleem was quiet, but I'm sure Aleem will be just fine. I'm not worried about Aleem McNeil at all. When DJ Reader comes back, that defensive line is going to be a problem.
Trisha Miller says Anzalone was amazing. Where was Campbell? Campbell was right next to him.
Campbell was
Man, he played a solid game. Another guy where I think he'd probably like that Davenport territory where he didn't have like a crazy game, but he definitely wasn't a liability. It's just when you have Alex Anzalone playing the way he did, it's going to look a little different. Like Alex Anzalone knew where the play was going. He was diagnosing plays through the run and the screen game. Like he was just a monster last night. Alex Anzalone is going to be having his best season. He's just a tone setter. And people talk about him not being able to be the fastest player. It's like, I don't know what they're watching. Like Alex Anzalone is everywhere. And he just kills dude. Like when Alex Anzalone hits somebody, it is a collision. He's just not wrapping them up and bringing them to the ground. Like he's enforcing pain.
Punching too.
13 tackles, 3 of them were TFLs. And like early on, like he snuffed out the screen to Cooper Kupp. I thought it was a tight end because of the way that he was just able to catch up to him. But Alex Anzalone making tackles behind the line of scrimmage on Cooper Kupp and a screen pass. Like those are the plays that you need your middle linebacker to make in order to win a Super Bowl and be a Super Bowl contender.
I mean, that's why Jack Campbell, I'm not going to panic. He looked fine. Because every time Anzalone made a tackle, he was right there. Yeah. So like Anzalone, if Anzalone didn't get it, Jack would have got it. So Anzo, all credit to him, man. That dude, we knew he was good, but to come out there and be like, hey, I'm calling out every fucking thing you guys are doing, and I'm making every tackle possible.
Yeah.
He played his ass off. So Anzalone, that duo, hopefully by the end of the year, you're talking about them like, hey, this linebacker duo, they're real now. All right, fellas. Anything else you want to get to? Anything on your mind from the game last night? again, we'll be covering it all tonight as well. 8
Yeah,
p.m. to
so
10
it's
p.m.,
not,
so
nothing that I'd rather save for the show too, but I think we got through like the most important stuff of it.
well, there you go. Hey, we appreciate you guys so much. Don't forget, man, if you're not subscribed, subscribe and turn on notifications because we will be posting today as well. Content will be live tonight. Get your merchandise, officialctsports.com as well.
Shout out.
Until tonight, guys, take care. Have a great day. And we'll see you tonight, 8 p.m. Be there. If you don't watch it live, it's okay, but you're watching it regardless. We'll catch you guys later. See you.
Peace.